Welcome to Inside the Lines, presented by BetMGM. Joined by Rachel Dory and John Daigle, I'm Olivia Harlan Dekker. With just 3 regular season games remaining, the quarterbacks are neck and neck in the race to lead the league in passing touchdowns. Dak Prescott had his worst game of the season in a driving Buffalo rainstorm. It was his second game of the season with no touchdown passes and first since week 1. Brock Purdy, on the other hand, threw for 4 touchdowns in Arizona. That was his third game of the season with 4 touchdown passes, giving him the league lead with 29. That's 1 more than Prescott. Josh Allen and Tua Tagovailoa both threw just 1 touchdown. That dropped their odds significantly. Jared Goff torched Denver for 5 touchdown passes, tying him with Allen for third this season with 26 passing touchdowns. Rachel, are you going with the leader, Brock Purdy, or in another direction?
I am going to go with Brock Purdy. I think when you consider the defenses that he has to play coming up, yes, he has that tough Monday nighter against Baltimore, but after that, he is playing some awful defenses when it comes to defending passing touchdowns and passing at all. So when you look at this, he's got 10 touchdowns in his last 3 games. That is incredible. He also has the ability to make something out of nothing. There are so many offensive weapons on the San Francisco 49ers offense, whether it's Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. There's so many options he has to throw to get to this number. At plus money, I see a ton of value here, and I am going with Brock Purdy to lead the NFL in passing touchdowns.
Love the value. John, how are you handicapping this market?
I am leaning with Rachel and being boring and going Brock Purdy as well because of that schedule she mentioned. Not only beyond the Ravens, which could be an exciting, high-scoring game, but the Commanders next week are literally creating the league's lowest pressure rate since they traded Chase Young and Montez Sweat. And here comes Brock Purdy, who's the only quarterback in the league averaging over 10 yards per attempt from a clean pocket. And then he gets the Rams in the final game, who combined with the 49ers to score 53 points the first time they played in week 2. So overall, I look at the schedule and I say Brock Purdy can lead the league in passing touchdowns based on these opponents.
Okay, a lot of agreement. Let's stick with futures, but switch from offense to defense and look at Defensive Player of the Year. Micah Parsons is still the favorite to win the award, but you can now bet him at even money after the Bills scored 31 points on the Cowboys. With Parsons' odds dropping, Myles Garrett's odds improved almost 20% to plus 165. That's despite not recording a sack for the 3rd straight game. TJ Watt registered 2 sacks in the Steelers' loss to the Colts, making him the league leader with 16 sacks and improving his odds the most of this group to plus 400. Danielle Hunter also recorded 2 sacks in a loss, putting him just half a sack behind Watt for the league lead. John, who are you betting to win Defensive Player of the Year?
The issue for Micah Parsons is that, yes, he should be the favorite, but I also think he gets taken out of the race over the next couple of games after the Bills recorded the highest run play rate of any team in Week 15 and somewhat exposed the Cowboys' passing attack because that negated Micah Parsons in the pass rush overall when Josh Allen could turn around and hand the rock off. And if you look at who's coming up for Dallas against Micah Parsons, it is the Dolphins running game with Devon Achane healthy for 6 full appearances this year. They've led the league with 6 yards per carry, and then this potent Lions rushing attack. And so to me, I go to the next man up, and that's Myles Garrett, because the Browns are competing for a playoff spot. And if they sneak in, you could at least argue that Garrett has been the most important player on both sides of the ball for that team all year long. So I choose Garrett instead.
Rachel, which defensive player is catching your eye?
I like the next man up mentality from John. It makes a lot of sense, especially because you can argue that Myles Garrett is the most important player on the Cleveland Browns with what he does. But I am going with TJ Watt here. And I'm going with it because he is a one-man wrecking crew on Pittsburgh. At plus 400, I think this is a value play. When you look at it, he's leading the league in sacks with 16. He's tied for the league lead in fumble recoveries. And he is near the top when it comes to forced fumbles as well. He doesn't have as much help as Myles Garrett does. He also isn't double teamed as much as Myles Garrett, but he gets it done. And with the schedule he's got coming up with the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's going to have an opportunity to really get quite a few more sacks here. And I think if he's leading the league in sacks and maybe has one more fumble recovery, you're looking at a situation where the narrative here is that you've got an excellent defensive player, and despite not having a ton around him, he got it done.
One-man wrecking crew. I like that. Okay, it's time to focus on this week's action, and let's look at who the public is betting. Back-to-back wins by the Bills have kept their season alive. It's been so exciting, and the public is all over it. They love them this week against the Chargers after they fired their head coach, Brandon Staley. Almost 70% of early bets are on Buffalo to cover the spread when they visit LA. All of this one-sided action has moved the spread, of course, 1.5 points from when it opened. Rachel, are you backing the public and the Bills in this spot?
I am backing the public. I took this line right when it came out just because I thought it was way too low by my model. When you look at the Bills and how they have been able to play ever since the offense has kind of really gotten going, James Cook's got involved, they've become multi-dimensional. Their defense has started to round into form and sort of find their game. The Bills looked really good against the Cowboys. Now they're playing the Chargers, who don't have a quarterback, can't stop anything, and that's a big, big problem. Even though the Chargers are going to be at home, it's a bit more of a controlled environment than it is in Buffalo. And Josh Allen, I mean, with the way he's playing, we're having conversations about him being in the MVP category. I think minus 12, that's not enough for me. I've got this modeled out at minus 14.2. And so when you look at the situation here, this is a situation where we've got some stats padding and probably a massive win for the Buffalo Bills.
Yep, they look healthy. They look great. John, are you fading the public?
I am siding with the public and Rachel because it comes down to the Chargers defense, even with the coaching change. And as she mentioned, I don't know how the Chargers defense stops the Bills whatsoever. They already were doing whatever they wanted before they fired Ken Dorsey, who was really just scapegoated due to unlucky turnovers because the Bills were top 5 in points and yards per drive. And all they've done the last month under Joe Brady was add this caveat and targeting their running backs, James Cook included, at the 6th highest rate in the league. And we are seeing what he's doing whenever he has the ball in his hands. So the Bills can pick their poison. They can do whatever they want against the Chargers defense. And I think that's what helps us cover this number and get to the over.
Okay, another game that's being heavily bet this week. The public is loving, but they're really loving the total because everyone thinks this could be a preview of the Super Bowl, myself included. It's the Ravens and 49ers. Even though we've got the top 2 scoring defenses squaring off against one another, 85% of early bets and 95% of the money are on the over, so it's moved up 1.5 points since it opened. John, are you fading the public on this total and going with the defense?
I am going with the over, if only because I don't know how you stop these engines on offense. We arguably haven't even seen Lamar Jackson have to put his foot on the gas for the entire game. And you would imagine that's what happens in this spot. Not only that, but the Ravens are dealing with some injuries on the injury report that are very, very important to monitor ahead of Monday night. And if that's the case, as we talked about earlier, Brock Purdy has been so sterling whenever they can create a game plan and he just stays from a clean pocket, since again, he's literally leading the league in that department and yards per attempt and completion rate. So overall, I think both offenses will get there in this game. So I am leaning the over.
Rachel, do you see this total going over or under?
I look at this total and it's probably a no bet for me because of the volatility of that Baltimore Ravens defense and the injuries that we do need to monitor. I also look at this and I go, these are 2 of the best defenses in the entire NFL, and there is a chance that those defenses have a night, even with the talent of Lamar Jackson on the side of the Ravens and the ability to just completely take over a game. And then you've got all of the offensive weapons that we mentioned with the San Francisco 49ers. Yes, there is a path to this going over, but for me, I've got this modeled out way too close to the number for this to be a bet on either side for me. I think if the total gets back down to 46.5, I might lean towards the over, but right now it is a no bet for me.
Okay, let's stick with the cross-conference theme, but let's look at a trend here. We've got 6 cross-conference matchups this week. That includes that Monday night clash we just discussed. The NFC is owning the AFC in these games, going 14-6-2 against the spread. They cover 70% of the time since week 10. In fact, last week was the first time since week 9 where the AFC teams covered in more cross-conference matchups. So Rachel, which NFC team is continuing this trend in covering against an AFC opponent?
I think I'm going to have to go with the Cowboys here. I'm not inherently confident in this. This is sort of a hold your nose bet, But when you look at this, the Miami Dolphins have struggled a little bit against the better teams in the NFL. The Cowboys got ripped apart last week against the Buffalo Bills, and the really good teams, the contenders, they find a way to bounce back and get it done. You also don't know what the situation is going to be with Tyreek Hill. Even if he plays, he's very obviously not going to be at 100%. And when you are playing the Dallas Cowboys defense, you need to be at 100%, clicking offensively, to be able to handle what the Cowboys defense is going to be able to do. And so I think you're looking at a combination of factors with a rebound game for the Cowboys, as well as some injuries for the Dolphins. I've got this modeled out. If Tyreek Hill doesn't play, I have this modeled out at 0.2. So basically a dead heat. And for me, I just can't trust that the Dallas Cowboys won't have a big rebound game. So I'm going to back the Cowboys here.
Yeah, it's a shame that the Dolphins don't have any other offensive weapons, isn't it? When Hill goes. I'm kidding. I'm excited to see them back at it. John, which NFC team are you backing?
I like the Bucs to cover against the Jags 1 point because Baker Mayfield is live currently for Comeback Player of the Year. The Bucs are fighting for a playoff spot, but this is really about what the Jags defense has become since they returned from their bye from Week 10 on, because in that time, 4 quarterbacks have exceeded 290 yards. And Brock Purdy would have also gone over 300 altogether if he hadn't gotten benched at 296 and Sam Darnold put in the game, since the 49ers just road graded Jacksonville in that one. But the other two, Jake Browning and Joe Flacco, had no issues producing against them. So given what we've seen from Baker and the Bucs offense overall through the air of late, I do think they covered this one.
So let's check out another trend, but focus on totals, specifically in division games where it's getting hot. The over has hit in 3 out of 4 division games for the Eagles this season, and they host the Giants on Christmas Day. The over has also hit in 3 out of 4 division games for the Lions, who will visit the Vikings on Sunday, while Minnesota has yet to hit an over in a division game this season. Wow. While the Steelers and Chiefs have only hit 1 over in their 4 division games this season.
Something's got to give between the Lions and the Vikings, and I'm going to side with the Lions going over indoors. Yes, Minnesota's defense has been incredible, but we've seen the construct of the Lions offense win out, even against the Bears a couple weeks ago. Quite literally the league's best run defense. Both Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery averaged over 6 yards per carry. And then against the Lions overall, including Jordan Love on Thanksgiving, the last 2 weeks, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, both got there on the ground. And Nick Mullins showed he can not only help elevate those elite players around him with 300 passing yards, but he did provide 6 carries on the ground as well. So I think there's enough immense talent in this game on both sides of the ball to negate the defenses and get the over here instead.
Okay. Rachel, which total trend are you backing?
I'm right there with John for pretty much every single reason he laid out here. When you go and you have Nick Mullins, he was able to throw for over 300 yards. He's going to have receivers that he can target. You can tell he's developing a little bit of a rapport with TJ Hawkinson as well. That's going to be key. The resurgence of Tyson Chandler has also been fantastic. Then you look at the flip side and you go with the Detroit Lions. Obviously, they have Amon-Ra St. Brown, but they've got pass-catching running backs, and they've got guys that can really pound the ball between David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. I think this is a situation where, yes, the defenses have been better, but when you look at it, the Lions, they've given up quite a bit, and the Vikings have the propensity to give up some decently chunked plays. And so when you look at that, there's some explosive targets on both sides of the ball here. And I like this. The over here, especially indoors, it's a controlled environment. You got 2 decent quarterbacks. Jared Goff is kind of tailed off of late, but he is always capable of having a 3 or 4 touchdown game, especially indoors. I'm backing the over in this game.
Yep. Lions offense healthy and indoors are looking pretty good. Okay, it's time for primetime props. We're going to share our favorite props from either the Sunday night game or the Monday night game. Rachel, are you Patriots Broncos or more Ravens 49ers? One of these is a lot more attractive than the other.
I think we probably know where I'm going with this one. I'm going to go with Brock Purdy. The CJ Stroud fan club has had to be put on pause for a minute because he's hurt. And so we're in the Brock Purdy fan club now, and I'm going over 1.5 passing TDs here. You are getting him at plus money. And quite frankly, yes, the Ravens defense has been really good, but there are just too many weapons for Brock Purdy to target here, and I think it's going to be a major, major game, a marquee game. He's going to have the time and space to make his passes, and with the explosiveness of the San Francisco offense, getting this at plus money is a complete no-brainer for me.
Is the CJ Stroud fan club still meeting, or are you also in concussion protocol?
We're still meeting to discuss this,
Okay.
but yeah, we're kind of we're questionable, I would say.
Sure. Yes. Questionable for Sunday for sure. Okay, John, which prop are you watching in prime time?
I'll go to the other side of that matchup because I like Isaiah Likely over 35.5 receiving yards. Not only does he lead the team with a 19% target share without Mark Andrews the last 3 games, so the opportunity is there, but it's equally important the 49ers have ceded this number to tight ends over the last month. Cade Otton reached 49 yards against them in Week 11. The Seahawks tight ends room collectively went over 56 yards in back-to-back games, and Trey McBride last week went over 100 himself. So Likely getting all the targets in that potent game. I do like that number a lot.
Okay, I like it. Before we wrap up the episode, we're going to give you our blue chip bet, aka our best bet. Anything we love, spread, money line, total, prop, whatever we want. So, John, the floor is yours. What is your blue chip bet?
I already talked about how I like the Bucks to cover the Jags, but my favorite way to attack that game is through the over at 42.5 points. And it has come down to smidge because we are still waiting on whether CJ Beathard will start in place of Trevor Lawrence in concussion protocol. But the point is, Tampa's defense has been such a sieve through the air since they returned from their bye. 31st in yards per attempt, 30th in explosive pass rate, that I really do believe that even Beathard can get Calvin Ridley, Evan Ingram, the rest of their offensive weapons there in this matchup. And if we think Baker is going to be able to answer, since the Jags defense has allowed 8.5 yards per attempt from week 10 on, then the over here makes it my favorite bet of the entire week.
I like it. Rachel, what's your blue chip bet?
I'm going with the Bills at the Chargers here, and there's one particular player where he has just exploded of late, and that is James Cook. I'm going over 95.5 combined rushing and receiving yards. He has gone over this number quite a few times ever since the play calling kind of switched hands here. He's being targeted in the passing game. He is running all over the place against just pretty good defenses. And so now he's going in and he's playing a Chargers defense that is effectively Swiss cheese. And so when you look at this, he is going to be a prime target for Josh Allen. He is going to get his touches, whether it's rushing or receiving. I love this play. I have him modeled out to 111.6. So when you look at that, that is quite a bit of value here to get at minus 115. And so for James Cook, I think he's become a premier part of their offense, somebody that drives them to success, and someone that's going to be a big part of the Bills-Chargers game coming up here this weekend.
Yep, he just made it look easy on the touted Dallas defense. I like that one a lot. Okay, thanks for watching Inside the Lines. To everyone at home, thank you both for all of your insight. We'll be back every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll see you next week.